Noots. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Beautifully Broken podcast. I am here with Mr. Noots. Welcome to my home.
So good to be here. Thanks so much.
It's great to have you. So if we were to meet on the street, we're walking down New York City. We happen to meet on Broadway and 51st.
I know that place.
You know that place?
Oh yeah.
I had an intuitive hit. And I said, what do you do? What would you tell me?
Do you remember the movie Limitless?
Yeah.
And you would either say yes or no, right?
Yeah.
If you said no, I'd say, well, Bradley Cooper takes this super drug and it makes him really sexy and wealthy and successful, kind of like he really is in real life.
Yes. He is. Crushing the game, Bradley Cooper.
But yeah, big time. And so I would kind of use that because that's been the most successful metaphor for me to be able to introduce what Neurotropics can do for people, right? To take them into a different state of being or a different performance level. Mm-hmm. And so I make the world's most powerful nootropics that are custom blended and personalized for your physiology and neurology. That's what I do.
That's amazing.
Among other things.
The world needs that right now.
Oh, dude. The biggest challenges that we're facing, right, are the challenges of not knowing. Mm-hmm. And because most people want a very fixed, predictable outcome in their lives. And we're dealing with so many variables right now, whether it's economic, whether it's spiritual, right? There's a fall of the church right now is big in a lot of people. Right now, economic is equal to what we're doing to the environmental impact. And then our health is a byproduct of all of those stressors, the fact that we don't know how to manage adaptogens, we don't know what our oxidant levels are and how to manage those. And then our toxicity is building constantly. So how do we put ourselves in an environment or a state where we can optimize our neurology to make better decisions, optimize our energy to execute on those decisions, and create inevitable success for ourselves?
Yeah. So when we met today and we sat down, I said, before we jump into this interview about optimizing cognitive function, let's get you on a system that I have called HRV scan. We looked at your predominant brainwave states, heart rate variability, your nervous system tone, the energetics running through your body, and you pretty much blew it off the charts. Can I say how old you are? No, do you know?
Yeah. No, totally cool. Yeah. I'm an old guy. Yeah.
You're right. So your biological age is 60. And your genetological curve, how you're aging against 10,000 other people, was almost 32 years younger. It was really incredible. That must be as a result of lifestyle. Some of the things we're going to talk about today. How do you feel about scoring like that on a biometric system to give you a little feedback?
It's funny because I've been doing testing, blood testing, and urine and skin and hair and the rest for years now.
Yeah.
As a byproduct of doing what I do for a living, you kind of want to be the beta white rat for yourself.
You do. Yeah.
And so before I take it out to anybody else, I want to make sure it doesn't kill me. And so I've had a lot of this data, right? But really to see it through another set of eyes, and another technology. Mm-hmm. Like I thought for sure when you hooked me up to that, I was going, dude, no, I used to work for some Scientologists. I know what I know what the e-meter looks like. No, but this was so much cooler.
Yes.
So yeah, I love that. So thanks. One is we talked about StrengthsFinder for a moment, right?
Yeah.
About this book test that you take that kind of quantifies your strengths against your weaknesses so that you can actually focus on your strengths. Because in exercise, your strengths are what make you powerful and give you the success that you want in your life. So that was really cool. But what's really neat about this, right, is okay, so what if I knew what my strengths were? What if I had some confidence in the things that I really am a rock star at, or at least could be a rock star at?
Yeah.
What if I had the biochemical analysis that said, okay, by the way, your neurology and your physiology align with this strength really well. That's another order of magnitude of performance.
Yeah.
Achieve. So
yeah, and it gives you a really, when you're saying all that, when you have an understanding of that, it gives you such a pyramid. You have such a strong base to build off of. Again, this idea that we will change the world. We are changing the world in the process of, the idea of when we're looping back in, we can visualize the performance. We can see that you're a high performer. We met on the street. We introduced, what you do for a living. There's always a little bit of a pain to power scenario, a Superman, how did your planet blow up and it was Earth that gave you superpowers? I've always been particular towards Batman.
Big time.
Because he's just a normal dude
right.
making use of these incredible technologies and skill sets. And yeah, the latest Batman movies, he really gets his ass kicked.
Right.
Which they never did in the past.
Right.
But I'd love to hear.
The Chris Nolan version is one, right? And I mean, from my perspective.
Yeah, like 4 Batmans in, you're like, this guy's not going to make another movie.
Right.
They gotta, we have to reboot. But if you would offer us, like, there's always a reason people find themselves committed to a mission so wholeheartedly and 2000%. I'd love to hear yours if you'd love to share it.
So I'm gonna avoid a lot of redundancy.
Yeah.
Because I want this to be a fresh perspective on this.
Sure.
But so my wife and I had 3 absolutely incredible children, born at home, a hot tub, a birthing chair, and a couch in front of the fireplace. And on the last one, she tore a little bit. They actually handed me snips before that and said, "You want to cut your wife's vagina?" And I said, "Nah, I don't think I want to cut my wife's vagina.
Yeah,
I kind of like the vagina like it is."
Yes, yeah. Yeah.
I'm not going to make origami out of my wife's vagina.
Yeah.
And so, and she tore a little bit, and the midwife, right? Again, all natural health, right?
Mm-hmm.
Handed her 4 oxycodone, and the love affair began with oxycodone. So, and I don't have to go into the details. I think we've seen enough on TV about the Sackler family and what oxycodone, OxyContin have done.
Yeah.
To devastate the world. So 10 years later, after she was in full-blown addiction, she committed suicide on that same drug. So it's 2008. So I felt, one is I had a bit of a biochemistry background. I've been doing chemistry since I was 6. And I don't mean that like building a volcano in kindergarten. Like that used to be a thing, by the way. Yeah,
it was. I didn't do it, but I did. I think others in my school did do that.
Or there's Mentos and Coke, right?
Exactly.
And so we used to at PR Web, which David McGinnis of what is this new company? It is newsworthy.ai. So the founder of PR Web had such a great company culture thing that he would do. We would go out in the parking lot every once in a while. This is in Ferndale, Washington. And we would put a bunch of bottles of Coke and do Mentos and Coke. That was like a break that we could do from writing press releases. Anyhow, so I took that background in chemistry, and then I had built a human growth hormone precursor supplementation company back in the 90s. And so I'd gone through that, and I had my own health crisis prior to that. And so I kind of knew what it was like to be in crisis, to come through the crisis better than before, not just as good as, and then to be able to look your perspective on life. We talked a little bit about yogis and kind of observational, like active observer state.
Yes.
Right. Where you see yourself, you see the situation we're in, right, and you're able to observe it without having that need to control it or need to manage it. Just being, like I'm actively observing it, and I know that the outcome is going to be whatever the outcome is, and I don't care. What I care about is just being present and loving and doing those things, right?
Yeah.
So we fast forward to 2008, and I'm watching them put a 6-inch needle in her heart to try to restart her body after she had turned blue. And so I was tweeting at the time, actually. And that was my, like, how do you manage this? How do you, this love of your life is down there. And so you transfer that, what could be anger, frustration, legal, whatever,
grief,
right? And you transfer it into, how am I going to make sure that nobody else has to go through this this agony and the anger and the loss? And so that comes to, I had played with Nootropics in the early 90s. I'd done a couple of acetylcholinesterase inhibitors. And in fact, I spoke with Dave Asprey on this. So funny, because Dave being the coffee man, right? And I think one of the first things out of my mouth was, I tried to get people off coffee. These engineers at Intel, I tried to get them off coffee by using acetylcholinesterase inhibitors. And I didn't, and it's like such a great gaffe that I did, because Dave the coffee man. Anyhow, Danger Dave, you're cool, man.
I love you, Dave.
Yeah, exactly. So I took that same thing and going, hold it. I realized that I could control neurological performance with this one little component, right? Don't let the acetylcholine break down. Keep it flowing in the synapse, and you can do some miracles. You can actually do some cognitive miracles. We saw the performance of these Intel engineers dramatically increase, and they didn't go through these big waves. Right? So it was really, really powerful. Very much like what originally what Dave did with Bulletproof.
Yeah.
Like if you mitigate the caffeine rise and fall by using butter and fats and right, or theanine.
Still doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Still doing it.
Yeah.
It's my one cup of coffee in the day is some fat coffee.
And it's all I need, right?
Yeah.
So until College Genius, but we'll get into that. So the thing was, David, such a neat guy. He came and flew his jet down, picked up me and my kids, flew us to Blaine, Washington, which is right on the border of Canada. Showed me this house overlooking the ocean, and said, "Here, man, I got you taken care of. Go do the thing that you need to do to go make this better." And for 4 years, I just formulated stacks. I took molecules and paired them, starting with pyroglutamic acid was the first one that I knew, because I knew it from the past. But it takes a lot of pyroglutamic acid to get an effect, and it puts a pretty heavy drag on your enzymatic system in the brain before it actually converts to the neurochemicals you need to process. And during that drag period, the challenge is that your state changes and it goes down in performance. And then once it comes out, you pop up out of it to a higher state. But that down state was something I didn't want to deal with. So I started pairing these molecules. I started sending them to these really bright people. I had about 400,000 customers I had a software company at the time doing brainstorming software. So I was paired with the founder of Century 21 Real Estate. We made this really cool software that helped you think laterally, creatively. All the big companies used it. So my friends at Genentech and my friends at Nike and at Gray Advertising and Wieden Kennedy and Apple and the rest, I just sent them unmarked tubes of shitty tasting powder.
Amazing.
And said,
try this
and tell me how. And then they built an online database.
What was the gag factor?
Right. That was it. David actually, we'd go to lunch once a week or so, and he said, "Mark, the only way this wakes me up is that it tastes so shitty." Right? It tastes like crap. It's going to wake me up.
Yeah.
It is the gag factor. But over time, I started finding these pairs and then pairing pairs with pairs to the point where we got some pretty good performance. And then one day, one morning, my son and a bunch of his friends had played music all night. They had a little studio room in the back of the house, and they played music all night till like 4 a.m. They come into my bedroom at 10 and they go, "Dude, we need some of your Jesus juice." That's what they called it. Okay. Which was like as I was concocting this stuff, I realized there was no way I could fit it in a pill. And I didn't want to do 5 or 10 pills. I wanted to have something that people could take reliably and get a predictable outcome.
Yeah.
At this point, I'd done almost 3,000 formulations. Okay. So it's like, you know what I mean? You beat your head and you're going, "I'm not going anywhere. This is not going to make any money. This is just something I want to do." And so that ended up, they came in, I made up the Jesus juice, but I made one molecular change to the Jesus juice and I gave it to them. And they came back 40 minutes later, stormed into my room and go, "Dude, we just wrote a song. We haven't written a song in 4 weeks, let alone 40 minutes. This stuff is amazing. Keep it flowing," right? And then they wrote like 3 or 4 more songs that day. It was incredible. And so my son Dustin and his buddies. And so it was kind of like the aha moment.
Yeah.
And then I was on a date in a bar in Bellingham, on an online date in a bar with a real estate agent. And a little tiny bar. Bellingham is a college city in northern Washington on the coast. And she goes, "Hey, there's the guy at the bar. He's my ex-boyfriend. You should meet him. He's one of the lead photographers for Sports Illustrated. Cool guy, Brit, right? About 6'4", fit."
Yeah.
And he comes and sits down and we have this we're a lightning conversation. I kind of forgot about her at this point because we're having such a great conversation. And he goes, "Hey man, I'm flying out tomorrow. Hey man, I'm flying out tomorrow." Yeah, whatever. It's bad.
Yeah.
I'm not going to even try it. I'm not even going to try it.
We'll go back to that. Put a pin in it.
Yeah, thanks, man. And he said, I'm going to go shoot Blade Runner, the Pistorius, the runner, the sprinter with the carbon fiber legs.
Yes,
right?
I know.
And he goes, and this is before he killed his girlfriend and all that, right? And he goes, but my ADD is killing me. I said, dude, I think I got something. Tube
In your
of
pocket.
powder, right?
Yeah, you
Generic tube of powder, no markings on it or anything, and a capsule I had developed as well. And I said, why don't you try this? Don't chug it, sip it, because it's kind of powerful, and just mix it with bottled water when you're over there. He texts me from South Africa and says, dude, this shit is the game. He goes, how do I get more? I need to have it. He goes, there were 20 handlers trying to tell me my job, and I got the shot anyhow. Because I need more of this stuff.
Yeah.
And then he would just call me over and over and over, and for about 4 months. And finally, I relented. I answered the phone. I said, what do you need? And he goes I said, Mike, what can I do for you? He goes, dude, I'm going to drive up. It's 30 minutes. Is that enough time for you to make as many tubes of that stuff as you can? I don't care what it costs. I don't care what I got to do. And then we met at a restaurant, and we did the deal.
Yeah,
it's great.
That's great.
And he's a super great guy. He's now a professional sailor, right? One of those guys. Very cool. And so that kind of gave me the hope that something can happen. And then I moved back to Vancouver, Washington. I started spending weekends, once every 5 or 6 weeks. I would go to a rehab clinic in Astoria, Oregon, and I would start working with people that were coming off the paddy wagon, that were wasted out of their minds on meth or coke or heroin or drunk or whatever, into this rehab center. And my whole thing was, after studying addicts, I have a sister that was a heroin addict for over 30 years, and then seeing my own wife go through that experience, and some of her family as well were alcoholics, and some of my own family, and I know what it's like to do drugs. I did drugs as a kid when I was young, and so I kind of knew the destructive potential as well as the entertainment potential. I mean, right? Yeah. I don't deny that, and also the performance potential. Like with psychedelics and what you could accomplish on those with the right dosing and the right environment and the right people around you and those things. So, before I was 20 years old, I'd done all those experiences and had some remarkable outcomes. So I knew the potential, but I didn't know how do you moderate that, and how do you in a legal environment, how do you create that? So I created the legal thing, and it started working with these addicts. And my questions to the addicts after we got them clean enough that they could be, they were lucid, was, why didn't you do this earlier? What are the big restrictions and those things? And they said, well, it's embarrassing. It's going to be, 12 to 24 weeks. It's expensive. I'm probably going to lose my job, right? I mean, they can't fire them while they're there, but they can make a case when they come back. And then I'm going to be addicted to something anyhow. I'm going to be addicted to some of the meds I'm on or whatever that make me feel like crap, or that make me lose my personality, or they just don't, I don't feel right. I don't feel me. And so I said, what if I could do something that was very fast, say 72 hours or less, maybe a week if you're in a really, really bad shape, detox, you got to go to detoxification while you also replenish neurochemicals so you start feeling good. What if it was inexpensive? And what if when you were done, you weren't addicted to anything? And what if you've actually felt better than you did before you came in here? Like better than your best highs you were experiencing prior.
Yeah.
Instead of chasing a dragon, right? You're chasing success and chasing your life. And that was the kind of first foundational piece, which led to, if I could help you think better, if I could get you to think clearer, and I could give you that energy to execute, you could probably have a taste of success, whatever you define that as. It doesn't have to be money. It doesn't have to be sex. It doesn't, whatever it is that's special to you, that's meaningful to you. It could be a relationship. It could be being clear about having better perspective.
Yeah.
It could be overall happier. It could be more motivated. Whatever that success looks like to you. And so that was the thing. And so my journey then became, okay, I originally wanted to get people off drugs. Well, that's one level, right? But what happens when you're not an addict, or not, you're not weighted down by some of those neurochemical challenges? What can happen? And so the people those people on my test case started becoming customers. And my first big customer outside of Mike, who was great, the Sports Illustrated photographer, the next one was the guy that started the first big file sharing company in the world, whose best friend also happened to be the guy running one of the largest social media companies in the world. And they fell in love with this product. And It was great. And they started spreading it around to their friends and those things. So we took these high performance individuals and gave them higher performance without burning them out. It wasn't a caffeine rush. It wasn't a drug high. It wasn't something that depletes neurochemicals. It was something that enhances neurochemicals, helps regulate the flow of them, helps do some age reversal in the body, as you saw on the test, and also improve their connectivity with themselves, so that they weren't having an out of body experience, right? Yeah. They were having a high presence experience, and that's a game changer.
Yeah,
when you can walk into a room and the people that you're interfacing with, you have a better sense, even if it's like an intuitive sense of what they're thinking or what they need, or what's going on, like where the tensions are, where the the choice point is for you to be able to diffuse the tension and create harmony. That's a really powerful thing, and I think that's one of the unspoken areas that Neurotropics and some of these brain enhancement solutions can provide.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm hearing you say, and from, I'm imagining people hear this at home, they're like, that's probably my number one pain point in life, is that in relationship, in community dynamic, I don't feel like I'm allowed to experience the joy I know this moment could be, the presence, because there's drag, there's fatigue, there's brain fog. We've just went through 2.5 years of a new experience that the planet never had before.
Big time.
And there is a residual effect. And I'll tell you right now, as you're saying this, I was like, man, there are days when it's tough, to show up and do the thing that you're trying to pull across, not across the finish line, but you're trying to almost birth something into humanity.
Huge.
That you want an awareness of. And it takes so much energy to guide something, especially when it's new.
Yeah.
So
giving birth to all the moving parts. My God.
Deliver that.
The unknown.
Yeah.
The unknown moving parts.
Yeah.
This is my 19th company, 18th or 19th. Anyhow, so I've done startup after startup after startup after startup, and then I've advised a bunch more, and have worked on a bunch more, and have raised money for a bunch. And those moving parts are so unpredictable. The thing that you wrote the plan for, or that you thought, or you got super excited about, you got your dopamine rush from, suddenly has to pivot, right? Is the term the VCs and angels investors use, to become something valuable enough for people to engage into it and make sense. And also, and sometimes it hopefully it's a pleasant surprise. The pivot becomes something that's not just economically viable, but also spiritually viable. It's meaningful to you. But yeah, that's those variables, which the more, not just the more successful we are, the more engaged in life we are, the variables increase, because we're actively doing more, and we're infecting more people with our vision and our passion, and we're giving them hope. Hope and all is huge. And so that suddenly can take us down these roads that are very unpredictable. I know you've had your own health crisis.
Lots of fun there.
That wasn't written into your plan. When you were 8 on your bicycle,
right?
You didn't see that coming, right?
Yeah.
But I think and thankfully you didn't just resign and say, fuck it, I'm out.
Yeah.
You said, hold it. There's got to be a solution to this.
Knew it.
Yeah.
I knew it beyond a shadow of a doubt. I think, one thing, just because I've experienced some of these altered states from your product, specifically from these wonderful nootropics. Yeah, I know, right here on the table. I want to just call out like brain flow in my morning coffee, because
brain flow, baby.
Brain flow was an absolute game changer for me. I actually jumped on the system, the HRV, and I showed Anthony a screenshot, and my gamma was at like 48%.
Awesome?
And I didn't feel, a lot of times when people are in high gamma, you can feel like it's almost too much to control. I was like, I texted him, I was like, I feel as right as rain. It was like day one. It was so quick. It's so funny. I'm like, why am I not doing that every day? The human condition, right?
Right.
We need accountability. We need a mirror. We need to do this. For me, it's in community. But tell us a little bit about the variations of people. They have options within this. Absolutely. Within Nootropics.
Yeah. Well, that's
Nootopia.
Right.
Yes.
So So the birth of Nootopia, which gives a platform for this conversation.
Yes.
So the birth of Nootopia came from, I had a company called Web Nutrients, and I'm working with these high-end executives and individuals. And a guy named Brad Costanzo, who's an executive coach, life coach, incredible man, had been a customer of mine since the beginning, since 2012, when I just started opening the doors and saying, here's some stuff available that might be interesting. And he did the first podcast with me. In fact, coming back from the rehab center, I parked my car beside a Safeway store, and he had like 4 or 5 guys in a room, and they're going, okay, we need to get the lowdown on what this stuff is. And I had no idea what, like podcasting wasn't a thing for me yet.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's just, but he did that. So we fast forward to just a couple of years ago, and I think it was in April, and he just bought his most recent order of what is Nectar X now. He cracks it open, he pours it out, he takes a shot of it, he puts it on Facebook, and the thread goes forever, right? The comments,
yeah,
and everybody's going, well, what about this, or what about this product, or what about this company, or what? He goes, Dad, I do all these things, man. You guys know me, right? I'm all about performance. He goes, this is stuff that works, and it's custom made just for me. And these guys care, and they love what they do. They're impassioned with it. They want to change the world. I do this stuff, right? And one of the guys that saw that was Matt Gallant. And Matt Gallant, the CEO and co-founder of Biooptimizers.
Yes.
And then he gave me a call a couple months later. And this was in July. And he and Andy Wilkinson, the COO of Biooptimizers, we got on this call. I didn't know that Andy's in London. I just know he's British, right? These British guys are always the guys that help me launch my companies.
Always.
And we literally, we're going to have like an hour conversation. 5 hours later, it's like 3 a.m. for Andy, and we're closing it down. And one of the first questions he asked, he goes, you want to sell your company? I said, no, I don't. I got a mission. I was called to do this. I can't get rid of this. And it's not like I want to protect my baby. I don't want anybody else to have it. It was, I want everybody to have it, and I don't want it to be shut down, and I don't want it to change so much that it becomes, it doesn't do the thing that it was called to do. And he goes, great, let's talk. That's what I want. I want somebody who wants to play for a long time.
Great.
And we started riffing every week. And then he said, hey, I've got an idea. Why don't we do a test? Why don't we try something? Why don't we refine? And he bought thousands and thousands of dollars worth of product every month, sometimes every week. And he tried them, and then he did it. He's really good at spreadsheets and data. And he started compiling and going, okay, this made me feel like this. This helped me perform like this. This didn't work for me very well. I need to tweak it, or I need to exclude it and try something else. And he just did that with all of our products. We had like 32 products at the time. So, or at least 32 SKUs. Maybe we had 20 something products. And at the end of it, he said, here's the deal, man. I got nine of your products that I know that I can combine, that I know work systematically to give me various states of performance. What if in order to not ruin your brand if things don't work out, in order to make it so that you're protected, let's give you a moniker, Mr. Noots. Let's give you an icon, and let's use a vocoder to hide your voice. And let's do a podcast, and let's build a new thing called Nootopia. How cool is that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's respect, because this is, again, not my first rodeo when it comes to company mergers. And I've never had anybody talk in such loving terms, nor more concern for the long-term outcome of the business. Whether Biooptimizers decided that they wanted to keep playing in this arena, or if they said, nope, we want to give it back, it's not working for us. And we did a podcast. Matt Wade T. Lightheart, who's the other co-founder. Fantastic dude.
I've had Wade on.
Awesome, yeah.
Amazing human being.
Oh, he's the best. He's the best.
Amazing human being.
And you talk about big hearts, man.
You guys have everybody you've mentioned has called in something great into the world and the universe, and taken an idea and put it into a physical form that's quite profound in a space which is flooded with other supplements and products. Everything's been a standout.
We are, kind of one of the high watermarks that we have is got to be either first in class or best in class, hopefully both. Although we're happy being a fast follower. If a company comes out with some innovative thing, that we feel that we can help, either promote or make it bigger. Like, I give huge props to Four Sigmatic and to Mudwater for helping make mushroom drinks viable, right?
Yeah.
Great folks that do great work. And M2 Ingredients and, the people at and all the folks that have done that. I think that we have something really special in our new College Genius product. But anyhow, let's just go back there.
Yeah.
So the deal is what people don't realize, two things, right? We have a scale called Sick to Superhuman that we developed.
Yeah.
Which is a process for people to understand where they are physiologically and neurologically broken or weak. And then the steps you can go through to get to superhuman potential. So that was one thing. And that was something I developed over the last 20 years almost now, of figuring out that, and where I came into it was I called it creativity to productivity. Being a hyper creative and inherently ADHD, which is an entrepreneurial phenomena, right?
Yeah. As your test showed.
Right.
I pointed out the high frequency, low frequency, very low frequency. Our entrepreneurs are always dominant in this high frequency band.
Exactly.
And it's really wild. It's the people driving the bus towards something that's new and not yet birthed into the physical.
One of my old business partners, no longer around, but great. He was a great guy. Wyatt Starnes was his name. I loved and hated him. I did a post on Quora where somebody asked a question. My co-founder can no longer perform for the company. How much stock should I give him? Or when should I give him stock? And I said, as soon as you get the source code. Yeah. And then little geek joke there. Hey, I did geek humor. And so but then I wrote about how Wyatt took me and nurtured me from being a B player to an A player, and gave me the guardrails and the guides. And then he died of throat cancer just a few years ago, and I wrote about that, and it got, I think I've got almost 1 million responses so far. 800 and something thousand people responded.
Wow.
But not because I'm a great writer, but because Wyatt was an amazing human being, and his loss was a huge loss. But he said, look, man, he goes, because we were co-CEOs of the company we founded. We had a laser technology company. And he goes, I don't know how to say this, but eventually one of us is going to have to drive the bus. We're both driving the bus right now. I love sharing it with you. It's great. But if you're okay with this, I'd like to take over the lead role on that. You can shift once in a while. Yeah. You might even lean over and apply the brakes, but one of us has to drive it. He goes, the problem is that we're going around a really rickety curve in a South American, hillside, and we got some wheels coming off and all kinds of stuff, and I've got a little bit of experience on how to get the wheels back on and how to make sure we don't run into cars, oncoming traffic. That's great. It's really important. So back to the real subject.
That's a great mic tilt for you, by the way.
This one right here.
We're
Am I going in and out of like?
No, you're great. You're great. But there's this warm, like fuzzy, like heart-centered hit when you do a mic tilt.
Awesome.
We're doing for people that are not watching this on video. We're recording on a Zoom H4, and we do handheld mics. It's called an SM38. It's actually what Tim Ferriss uses.
Oh, fantastic!
And it has the potential to just have this incredible warmth that other mics don't have, but it's handheld, so it feels a little old school.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. So we're not going on Rogan this week?
No, not this week. Those mics are wonderful.
Yeah. I'm picking a couple of those up. We're doing a new podcast studio up in my office. So the deal is if you knew if you knew what your states of performance were, right? If you knew the various states of performance you needed the loving connection state with your sweetheart, right? Who I actually met yesterday.
You need your connection with your lover.
Oh my God. Huge. And like she said, I can't take a focus for us or a focus savagery and be intimate. Right?
Yeah.
Because that doesn't work for me for intimacy. It works really great for getting shit done.
Yeah.
It doesn't work for intimacy. So if you knew the states if you knew that you could program the states that you needed to be in to perform the best for the thing that you have to do.
Yes.
Whether it's a extended focus or whether it is heart connectivity, whether it's spiritual domain of meditation or right, looking inward. If it was writing and creativity and you wanted to have lateral thinking all over the place, right? If if you're whiteboarding a strategy session and you need to really be kind of linear, but you need to pull things from the past and you need to pull different data, right? How do you program that?
Yeah.
And then how do you set the stage for that? So what we did, and what Matt's brilliance, one of his many brilliant things in this was pulling together these disparate things that I was making products for people based on their neurology and physiology and shipping them to them. And they were using them for that thing. But oftentimes they said, well, this is the only, they didn't know that they could have other states that were applicable to their lives. And I didn't know how to share that because I didn't, I hadn't defined it like that. And that's what Matt was so great at, was here, you can actually accomplish these different states and you can program them and you can have custom made stuff that will get you there faster or get you there better or keep you there longer or get you a higher, evolution of that state. And here's how to do it. So we put together 9 solutions for that originally. Now we're at 10 or 11. And the whole idea was state change optimization.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go from being loving to highly focused to being highly
Yeah.
creative, right? To sleeping better, to detoxing,
Yes.
right? To setting a platform so that when you want to change state, you can change state faster, better, more elegantly.
Mm-hmm.
You can do it without disrupting the previous state. You can just flow into a new state,
Mm-hmm.
those kinds of things. So that's what Nootopia has accomplished. And that's what I think it's our proudest moment was seeing these super high performing individuals. We work with, with some sports stars and Hollywood stars and high end folks.
Yeah.
And that's why they come back again and again, is that they say, this gets me into that space I need to be in to do this thing that's either really hard for me, like it's something it's not inherent to me, or that I love to do and I take it to another level.
Yeah.
Like that strength, they find that strength and they go, cool, I'm going to rock star that strength.
Yeah. I like framing it like that because, you said a couple things. You said it's that thing we have to do, that we're called to do. And sometimes it's like catching lightning in a bottle to be able to, what is it? Is it the perfect night's sleep? Is it hydration? Is it me being outside with full body sun exposure? Is it my elite diet? And still sometimes we do all those things and it comes up to the moment and you're like, I wish I had a little more in the tank,
right,
for this event.
Right.
I think it's really good to frame it like that. And that's, for me, that's what this solves. Because we're living in a world in which we've engineered, I don't know if you agree with me or
let's try it. Let's try it, man. Hit me.
The idea that we're living in this world that we've engineered this like high performing deliverables, like gold star quarterback, super cowboy millionaire personality that we that we believe we always have to show up as.
Gary V 101.
I mean,
right?
Come on. And it's hard to achieve that. And then there's like, when you're not hitting it, there's like shame around that. And I'm watching Gary Vee do this all the time. And he's got 18 companies and $1 billion in the bank. And he's optimized his Bitcoin accounts and all the things.
Right.
But for the human being to frame it for everybody at home, speak to me a little bit about there is a design element in which we are asking a lot of the human bioenergetic field, the brain pulling things in creation.
Yep.
Frame that for me, like the idea of like there's the entrepreneur, there's the stay-at-home mom, there's the grad student. Like we always got to meet people where they're at. So there's always, I just want to frame context for people in this as we start talking about optimization. It's really like 18 podcasts that I love it.
I love it. Yeah. I'm in. So I think it's so great because those are the big variables, right? And so, and a couple things. One is we address that up front. So when you come through our process of engaging, the first thing we do is a neurochemical analysis.
Yeah.
So you click a button, it takes you to analysis, it's free tests on the website. And what it does is it takes a lot of data that Dr. Braverman actually had started to collect that basically says, here's the neurochemicals that you're dominant in. Are you dominant in dopamine or serotonin, right? Or GABA, right? And then that allows you to kind of have a baseline reference point and allows our customization team to also have a baseline reference point.
Do you ever have people do neurochemistry or do neurotransmitters and be like, well, actually, here's what my lab showed me?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And
we have everything from 23andMe tests come to us to hardcore, here's my 10 separate 6-month lab reports on all these different characteristics.
Yeah.
Because we have hardcore biohackers that are clients of ours.
Yeah.
And again, they're clients because the customization, personalization aspect of it allows them to, and some of these people are they're above my pay grade. And thankfully, right? They're great.
Yeah.
They're great contributors to what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And because we aggregate that data, we've got one of the top AI guys in the world on our staff. So, and he's manipulating data at an amazing rate. And then we have like, I don't know if we have a whole biochemistry lab in Bosnia that is a part of Birch International University.
Mm-hmm.
And we have 7 PhDs and 9 PhD candidates that only work for us. All they do is do tests for us full time, 24/7, to optimize our technologies, make the molecules that we work with, figure out which ones are the best to do this performance thing, and then they test them to validate them.
Mm.
So we're not just throwing shit at the wall and hoping it sticks.
It's really impressive.
It's really I feel really, again, really fortunate.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bioptimizers, for
#show me the science. We've got it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and for a guy that is like yourself, right? That's so science backed and science. I get it. I have this experience. Let's go validate that experience. Or I got the science. Let's go see if that science translates to experience, right?
Yeah.
Because you've got to play with those two sides. So let's say you're a graduate student. Now you're working 20 hours a day, so you're getting insufficient sleep. You're doing a lot of cognitive processing. You need to be storing stuff in memory because you're going to have to recall it for testing and other things.
Mm-hmm.
And you also need to be flexible enough to be able to have the dynamics of life. You're going to be subject to a bunch of stress. So your adaptogen levels are going to have to be really high, and oxidative stress is going to be there as well.
Yes.
And you're going to start building some pretty serious detritus in the brain that you're going to need to clean out. Every night, the brain cleans itself out, right?
Yeah. The old lymphatic system.
Right. Yeah, it's great. So it changes in size. It opens up, right? Cerebral spinal fluid flows by the capillaries and it drags out all the ATP poop, right? That's coming out and gets rid of some of those, those beta amyloid or amyloid beta proteins and tau proteins and gets them down through the spinal cord and then out the body. But if you don't process that, if you don't get sufficient sleep, or you don't accelerate it, we have an accelerator called mental reboot. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a PM mental reboot that accelerates that process. You're going to start building up these toxins. And those are fighting all of the things you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
Right? Cognitive performance, memory, right? Lateral thinking, vertical thinking, focus. All of those things are subject to that. Mood, happiness, delight, right? Who wants a shitty orgasm? Nobody wants a shitty orgasm.
No.
So
I mean, that's going to solve a lot of wars right there if we can just up that bar.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is not pie in the sky bullshit. Yeah, right. I've taken vitamins before. I've taken nootropics before. This is real. I mean, we get. I couldn't be in this thing if it was putting a couple of nutrients in a cap and stuff. You'll notice.
Yeah.
Well,
we're taking a sample from the table.
We are.
I've been waiting because I literally have had this. I've been doing this fun detox protocol with this cool dual strain amino acid called amaramide for a month.
And
it's supposed to remove 80% of the mercury from your central nervous system, and I feel it.
So it's kind of a Mercury retrograde.
Yeah, exactly.
Boom.
Went there. That wins the podcast.
That was it.
Yeah.
So one thing you'll notice, I don't know, is there any cameraing?
Yeah, that's going to camera it.
All right. So
we don't have a close-up camera crew, but we can always.
Hey, dude, we can. Yeah, we're good. So one thing you'll notice is that the capsules are made of layers of different premixes and substrates, finished with a gel, which is actually an oil, like a DK2, typically. We've got a bunch of others. We got some CoQ10 and ubiquinol ones as well. But the reason that they're stacked like that isn't for the cosmetic benefit. They're stacked like that because when we custom make it for you, we take your profile.
Yeah.
You told us how old you are, what sex you are, what your what your eating habits are, what your stimulant preferences are.
Yeah.
Those things. And then you had a bunch of sliders. You had 5 sliders and said, here are my goals. I want to be more focused, but I want less anxiety. I want more relaxation, but I also want to be energetic enough that I can accomplish things during the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I want my hormone levels to be restored. Okay.
Yeah.
So we do all of those factors. And so we program them into the caps that we make based on what that cap's primary purpose is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is an upbeat. You probably recognize that.
Yes.
Upbeat, right?
Yep.
I'm on that right now.
Great.
It's super good for podcasting or for creative work or for when you're looking for verbal fluency.
Mm-hmm.
This one with a brain flow are fantastic. Hence the reason I have a brain flow. So, so what you've got is a cap that has these really fundamental characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
Most people, not you, but most people have a tendency to be low on certain primary elements that would fight the performance of a nootropic. So maybe their adaptogenic response is off because they've got a lot of stress,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they've got cortisol, rushes and flows, and you're constantly fighting that, or it's eating up the serotonin in your gut. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So then that's going to affect the vagus nerve. It's going to affect the serotonin in your brain. And suddenly you're just not feeling mood stable,
Yeah.
right? Or happy, or positive or optimistic, which is super required for any kind of follow through. You've got to be happy and optimistic because you can't rely on discipline to get you there.
Yeah.
Right, as we've known. So you need drive and the rest of it too. So the first thing we did was he said, okay, let's get a really good solid adaptogen in here, or stack of adaptogens. And then let's also do anti-inflammatory. So because inflammation, right, as we know, characteristic inflammation.
There's an epidemic of that around the United States.
Dude, we're living in it. Yeah.
Yeah,
and we
it's
just
wild.
had this thing that came through, this viral thing that came
Yeah.
through that exacerbated that big time.
And also, I think highlighted how inflamed people are.
Oh yeah.
That narrative of, oh, I know Johnny and he had nothing wrong with him. I don't roll my eyes, but I say, well, have you, unless you're somebody in the space of optimization, do you really know your blood chemistry? Do you really know the levels of mycotoxins in your blood? Because we're all living in moldy homes.
Yep.
Do you understand your body's like electron donorship potential to just heal?
Right. Oh
and it's
God.
low
Huge.
for people.
Yeah.
They don't realize that because that's not. Anyways, we're not going to go down the road of wellness care versus sick care.
But that's a huge one because there's not a commercial on television right now that promotes electron donor potential.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And even if we explained it really simply, right, there's still not, I can't advertise. I can't tell people this will make you happy, even if it will.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say this will help you be more focused, even if it will. There are certain words and terms and phrases and that the industry has said, sorry, you can't say that. You can't claim that, or you can't proclaim that.
That was a mind blow to me when working with like technology. They're like, you can't say this, you can't say this, you can't say this, you can't say. Well, we want to like tell people what we do. Well, you can't do it that way.
Right.
And it's just wild. I would never have believed it. I would never have believed it had I not, because my background, I did music theater and Broadway. I was a singer. So when I started to get
hold it, cut. No, I got to tell you. So in Vancouver, Washington, there is a CEO of the largest West Coast app firm. Okay,
Yeah.
Really significant company.
Yeah.
And they've got a Vietnamese development team,
Mm-hmm.
and they've got an American development team.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible. They're 24/7. And he and his wife came from Broadway musical theater. He's 5'9", she's 6'2". They've got like 8 kids that they adopted. And they're the best CEO is people in the world. They're now moving to the DR, Dominican Republic, to go build a farm so they can help kids understand what that whole process is and get them out of economic ruin. I mean, that to me is badass, right?
Yeah, it's badass.
What is it about musical theater that inspires people to do the crazy shit that it takes to do the things that you're doing?
I'll tell you.
Please explain for me.
Well, and I promise we'll track it back to where we left off because we both have those brains. It's music hits a different part of the brain.
Absolutely.
When I'm low, my base access to all human beings biohack is to do a vocal warm up.
Love
know,
it.
and
Oh,
I'll
no,
just
no.
run up and down through the octaves. It hits all the chakra centers in the body.
Right.
There's an opening in my ability to connect to other human beings and be empathetic. And the other thing is a performer, especially in Broadway, you know, it's a container in which sometimes people look at that conventional, say, oh, that's cheesy. But when you're really good at it, performing is just hyper listening. So you're passing the hot potato back and forth, and you're just waiting to see every single time. I'm going to do the same words, the same moves, the same performance every week. I have a script, I have choreography, and I am going to execute that. However, the magic in the room where it happens, no show is ever the same because everybody's energy. So you have to be open to playing with what is without attachment to result. And you do that for 20 years. And I just think I think you have the superpower of listening to what's needed, right? Because you're listening to the storyline. You're like, what's needed in this point? Why is this character doing this? Oh my God, this is why. On Wednesday. And then on Friday, they show up with the different energetics in Act 1, and Act 2 plays totally different because their needs were different. Their feelings were different. And I think that's a skill, I don't know, I've picked up is just, I like look at that as my superpower. Every time I listen to people talk, it could be on a Zoom meeting for operations. It could be on an affiliate call. It could be on a podcast. I'm always so interested in what people are offering, how they're offering it, what layers of armor are put up, or really, really empathetic and vulnerable people when they offer. I'm like, who is that to say that? That's fascinating. You offer that information in that way.
Right. Oh, that's such a great way to read that.
Looking at these, how people show up as characters. And when somebody's authentic and like you're saying, this couple that's going to the DR, you know, your experience of them is like, how brave, how bold, how wild. You know, with all the things you could do, you could just go live on a yacht for a while.
Right.
But you're choosing to do this. I think that you witnessing that is also, that's a great superpower.
Well, they blew me away. They went to the DR. They stayed in the Four Seasons or whatever the hotel was.
Right.
And then they said, we want to go. Can you go take us to a town? They said, no. It's like not safe. Can you guys go? Come on, please. And so they eventually, the concierge there said, I know this guy, and he drives like 2 hours, you know, like a Ford Bronco, and picks him up. And he's a local, right? But he knows the ropes.
Yeah.
And they get in the car and they say, hey, he took him to this town that they had heard about, this little town, right? It was very impoverished. And he said, what would it cost for me to feed this whole town? And the guy goes, oh, you could not afford it. Right? He goes, well, try me. He goes, no, it'd be way too expensive. It was like $350 to go to the local market and buy food for everyone in the city, in that little town.
Yeah.
And he did that, right? And he said, and that's when they got the heart for it. They go, oh my God,
we could do this.
We could do this.
Yeah.
Right. We could do this every day. So it's really good. You reminded me in your quick overview of musical theater and how it applies to entrepreneurship and the rest. Amy Poehler.
Mm-hmm.
And she did a book. I listened to it last year called Yes and, which is in improvisational theater, right?
That's the jam.
Yes and, right? It's not, you never say no, right? It's always yes and.
Yeah.
So whatever people are acting out or whether they're performing, right? It's Drew Carey on one of his classic shows. It's
whose
yes
line is it anyway?
Yeah, right? So it's yes and. So how do you take, and that is, I think, the superpower of an entrepreneur, especially an entrepreneur, like you're an advisor, I know, to companies, is walking into the boardroom when they've had a series of no's, they've had a series of frustrations, and having the yes and mindset to say, oh, but what about? And you turn on those cognitive performance things to go, oh, okay, Bill, I totally understand that. Lisa, come here, let's go check this out. And then you start whiteboarding, and the solution flows out of you.
Yeah,
it almost, you didn't even know at the moment that it existed. But when the pen gets in your hand and the whiteboard's there, right? This clean slate, this canvas, you start painting solutions that flow out of you in a way that you can't predict.
Yeah. And then just to speak to the types of people that you're working with Nootopia.
Yeah.
Once that happens, I want to walk away.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
I want to walk away. I want to say, You guys go make this happen.
And scene.
And see, the Idea Fairy will be back in 2 weeks.
Oh, God. Yeah. In Arrested Development, David Cross does this one. He decides he wants to become an actor.
Oh,
and
God,
right,
so good.
And so he goes into an acting audition.
I know.
And it's a fire sale, right?
Yes.
Okay, on the fire sale. How much? Right? And he just totally acts it out, right?
Yeah, it's
just
so good.
One of the most genius scenes. He's great. I think that people underestimate their ability to energetically approach life in a sustainable way. I know for myself, when I didn't have the tools that I have now, whether it's meditation, whether it's binaural audio for doing micro naps, or
Yeah.
where Nootropics, Nootopia, and the rest. What I would do is I would play the conservation game all day. Like, okay, how much energy is this conversation going to take, and how much do I need to reserve for the next dialogue I need, or the next operation I need?
That is a different way to live.
Oh, it's fucked.
Yeah.
It's really it's not rejuvenating. It's not, it doesn't speak to our own potential. It actually kind of pulls back in. It's the shoulders slumped in the, musical theater, By the way, did you ever see Tommy?
Oh yeah.
Right? Probably one of the best. I mean, from my perspective,
the best.
I'm old, so
yeah.
But
I have some really, really good friends that are now in LA doing, they're like a movement choreographer, or I want to say movement choreographer plus like if you've ever seen a love scene in a Hollywood movie, my friend Michael Arnold, he's the choreographer of every he's called an intimacy choreographer.
They can't pump, they got to rub,
right. But it's all so you set the stage, you give everybody an outline, and then you hit record, and you're going to play. But Michael Arnold he was in the original cast of Tommy.
Oh wow. Oh,
he's
no shit.
Awesome.
I
He's
love
an
that.
awesome guy.
I love that.
You need to talk to him.
I would love to
because
talk to that
he's
guy.
kind of in that scene, and that's a great example of like having to turn on that artistic spout whenever you're called upon. Yeah. And that's a wild dynamic.
I also just listened to Pete Townsend's life story, narrated by him.
Yeah.
I mandate that when I'm listening to audiobooks, as much as possible, it should be by the individual that is writing about. And another
Tommy is so good.
Yeah. Oh, and his life, I mean, it's great. It's great. I mean, and where Phil Collins plays into his life, and where Elton John plays into his life. I mean, all of these, and you go, holy shit, man. Yeah. These guys are royalty.
There's many concerts of Tommy in which Phil Collins plays Uncle Ernie.
Oh, no shit.
Oh, it's good. I'll send you a clip.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's wild.
Because I know Phil was a real actor. I got to tour with Peter Gabriel one year. So I did a laser company, and he wanted lasers that his audience could control. We had a wireless joystick laser. So he could throw the joystick to the crowd, and they would run the lasers. God. And so it was one season. It was four shows, but it was incredible.
Do you ever see the picture of Led Zeppelin in an airplane, and they had a fireplace in their airplane? Talk about badass. Rock stars know nothing about badass.
Right.
Badassery.
Yeah.
It's like next level.
It was great. When I got into Anthony's car today, he had Zepp cranked, and it was right in the middle of Whole Lotta Love. It was in the bridge of Whole Lotta Love. And it was just like, fuck. Good. Thank you. I needed this. This is going to be great.
So good. That's the way you start your day.
Well, so that goes back to when you start looking at your life as a platform for something, right? When you start redefining your life as not a cog in the wheel, not a survival, it is a platform for some meaningful outcome, from passing a test to raising your children, to meeting somebody on the street and passing love along to them, right? Yeah. To dropping a quarter in the bucket, whatever it is, to creating something that hasn't been created before. Yeah. This morning, my morning meditation was as I watched 2 short videos of guys biohacking, genetic biohacking. They're actually doing genetic engineering.
That's real biohacking.
Right. Yeah.
Because I know when people sometimes search that SEO term, they think, "Are you manipulating your genetics?"
Right.
Yeah.
No. And
tell me about the video.
Well, it's great. So these two, young guys, one in San Francisco, one in Chicago, and what they're doing is they're actually doing genetic engineering kits that you can buy. And they did the genetic engineering on themselves, right? They've tested them, and they say, here's how you could do this stuff. Here's some test kits. Like legally they can't sell like genetic engineering services or anything.
No.
Right. but they're right. Yeah. That could be really, really bad. But they're doing this, and I was going, and their whole thing was, we're stuck, and a lot of people they want to cure their cancer, or they want to get rid of this debilitating disease, chronic disease they've got, and there's no known solution on the market that you can get medically.
Yeah,
the stuff that you can get that's non-medical is illegal. So how about doing a little, snip a little DNA here, and let's see if we can create some kind of a thing. And so that's what they're doing. I'm going, wait, what brave souls. Yeah. Because they're like, the DEA and everybody else is after them on their cases and
totally
things. Yeah. So building a platform for your life that has meaning, purpose, is sustainable, can be passed on, right? It has a life beyond you, isn't rooted just in your ego, is rooted in something much bigger than you.
Yeah.
And then making it so that it's viable and valuable. Especially there's this tough balance, right? As entrepreneurs, we have to do something as entrepreneurs that are all in, we have to do something that is economically viable for us. We have to be in love with it. It has to be purposeful. I mean, Mike Rowe would argue, right? Mike Rowe would say, no, you just do something, you make a lot of money at it, and you'll love it because it takes care of you and your family. Yeah. And I get that. I'm not opposed to that. Yeah. I used to make parts for nuclear reactors. When I was 16 years old, I cut metal for nuclear reactors. Okay. So I know what it's like to have a job where you got yourself dirty. I worked on jet aircraft in the Air Force, right? I was a spy for a little while. I mean, I've had these various jobs that have very different profiles.
Did you say you were a spy for a little while?
Yeah. I signed up as an OSI agent in the Air Force.
Wow.
Then they ask you this question on your out of tech, right? When you're done with your training, and they say, okay, here's the deal. If you answer yes to any of these, you're getting out of the military, out of the Air Force, but with an honorable discharge. Nobody will know why. Or just an honorable discharge in special circumstances, and you'll be fine. Or but if you lie to us and we find out, you're going to go to the brig, you're going to go to prison, and you're going to get a record. And I didn't realize, I was so clueless. I was probably so on the spectrum. Is the individual hammering me with his questions is going like this, right? Or he's going like this. He's going, have you ever smoked marijuana? Yes. Have you ever taken LSD? Yes. Have you ever taken mushrooms, or psilocybin mushrooms? Yes. Just going through the list, right? Yeah. Have you ever snorted cocaine? Yes. And and all these things, and so he said, well, okay, here's the deal. I appreciate you saying yes. I was hoping that you could say no. Wink, wink. Right? To all of those. But he goes, your tests, you got a 97 plus on every test we've given you. Yeah. And you did great in your spy school and those. It says, what do you want to do? If you want to stay in, you can get out right now. If you want to stay in. And I was going in to save money to start a company. Like my purpose in going in the military was to save money so I could start a company. I already knew I needed to be an entrepreneur. I just needed an initial vehicle to get there. Yeah. And my stepdad had told me that he had matched all the money I'd send home. And then he reneged on that after a year because I sent a lot of money home. Right. But it was great. He got me started. Yeah. That's all I needed. And so, so where the hell were we on that? So
you were getting booted out of spy school.
I was. And so anyhow, so I said, well, we got a few jet airplanes. I said, cool, let me do that. I'd love to work. Yeah. Right. If I'm not going to be doing my own thing, give me something that will keep me busy and interested, and I'm fine. Right. But at this, I'm 60 now, right? Yeah. 18th or 19th company, starting in literally 11 months out of the Air Force. I moved into the back of a health club. I started my first laser technology company, the hardest of the 5 that I had decided to do, right? The hardest, most difficult, most challenging, most expensive. I'd saved $32,000 in cash. I spent it all in a year, and my company was acquired 11 months later. And I became, that was my first success. And then became an Inc. 500 company shortly after that, and then spun it out again and did another one, those things. But what I wasn't good at was understanding state development, state change, and platform development. So, and what I mean by platform development isn't necessarily you've got a platform for health and wellness as a podcast. And then you have your consulting work, or your advisory work that you do with these companies that are in the health industry. I think they're both very they're synergistic, right?
100%.
Which I hate that term, but I love the result of it, right?
Yeah.
Like what you do is really important to the companies you consult to, because you get to meet and work with and entertain and learn from the individuals that you podcast with.
Yeah.
And you also help to expand the message both ways. I love, by the way, for those of you that can't see, he's got 2 live chickens on the other wall here. They're just hanging out. Brenda, is that right?
Brenda and Lefty.
Brenda and Lefty, yeah.
Yeah.
So when we walked in, we had a short conversation with his 2 chickens out there. And they're just hanging out here in Austin. So it's great.
They're like dinosaurs.
Yeah, right.
If you really, I've never observed a chicken so much, and because they walk by the windows.
Yeah.
But they really do. I'm like, wow, they are prehistoric in a way.
Totally. They're not well designed.
Yeah.
Right? Huge bodies, little legs, beak, little tiny neck. The neck has all these, right? Kind of.
Yeah.
And then they poop out eggs.
Yeah. They poop out breakfast. What's your superpower? The chickens just beat us both.
Oh shit! It's so great when I talk to people about the sick to superhuman scale, right? Going from sick to suboptimal to optimal to super optimal to superhuman. I've got a 3D print of Barry the Flash, right? And I pull it up to the screen. The other day I pulled it up, and on the other side of the window, I live in this town in Burlington, Iowa, about 30,000 people, right downtown. My building is there, and there's a needle, a heroin needle on the other side. Like somebody had shot up right outside my office.
Yeah.
So I've got Barry, I've got a superpower, and I've got the thing that takes people's superpower away.
Wow.
And yeah, kind of wild. State change.
It is wild. I want to go back to the idea that because we have limited time.
Yep.
And that's okay. We're going to do 18 episodes of this because I could talk to you forever. But Nootopia.
Yeah.
The cool thing was I thought, like, when I opened my box, I had like a little onboarding process that you said that I went through an app. I answered a bunch of questions. I got a recommendation. And so that flow chart of how I play with those different state changes, I was like, what a great tool.
Right.
Now, I have to be honest also. I'm like the typical, I'm on to open the box. Even though there's directions, there's something in my DNA that says I can make a great experience without reading or following this app.
Absolutely.
And now talking to you, hearing the nuance in what you've done, now I need to go back. I need to reboot. I need to go back, and I need to do it the right way. Because I'm also of the belief system that we're our own worst enemies.
Oh, absolutely.
And if we could just slow down for a second and just, here's the clue.
Right.
You don't have to flip any rocks. I'm actually giving this to you on a silver platter. Talk to me about user experience and how you create the best possible user outcome when somebody gets a Nootopia kit.
I love it. Thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you.
We sound like those 2 gay chipmunks, don't we?
Yeah.
Oh, no, thank you. No, thank you.
No, thank you.
No, you first. You first. I mean that in a very loving way. I don't mean that, right?
Happy.
Yes. Right.
Yes.
So Matt had figured out, he had deconstructed the ability for the specific neurochemical profiles of each of the components, each of the capsules and the spray and the drinks, to affect certain neurochemicals and give you a performance outcome.
Mm-hmm.
What we did in the box was you open up the box, and you've got a like a 3-part. We were thinking Apple when we did this.
Mm-hmm.
When I got my first Macintosh way back in '86, you had this box. That was the one all-in-one Macintosh with a little tiny 9-inch screen, right?
Yeah.
Monochrome screen, Mac Plus. And what you do is you would open the box, and it says, "Read me first," and it was with a 1 on it, and you'd read it. And it was almost all pictographs. So it's like, plug the keyboard in here, put the mouse in here. Here's the disk for the OS, and here's the disk for the applications.
Yeah.
And it was super self-explanatory. And then it was open me next, and then open me next. Right? It was a very 1, 2, and 3. We tried and are continuing to get better at creating that experience for people. So it's a beautiful box, as I think you'd agree. Magnetic closing box. One of the great things about Matt and team is when we when we say, hey, we want to make the best products in the absolute world for everybody, And we think that also means that our presentation has to be world class, because you have a visceral experience with everything you touch, right? So
sets the stage.
Absolutely. Let's make it as best we go. Like, we have this cool thing coming out. And I'm getting back to this box opening experience, by the way.
Yeah.
But this is coming out pretty quick. So all your products will be in these magnetic packs. This is for you.
Beautiful.
And so each one of them, you mounted in this, and then you can take it with you. You can pocket it and take it with you and pop them out as needed.
Yeah. And reusable.
Reusable and green. Yeah. It's, 50% recycled product right there. And,
I feel that. That's great.
Yep. And then it makes that snappy talent.
Oh, come on. Click.
Yep. Yeah.
Ready to roll.
Well, the idea is I had this vision in my head. It was, you probably like old film if you're into musical theater.
Sure.
So I was thinking James Dean, the pack of Camels, right? Unfiltered, wrapped up in his sleeve, and a Zippo lighter. On a street corner, right?
Yeah.
I thought, what if we could give people this experience that they were proud to have with them, that it was kind of a cool thing. Like, if people pulled it out in public, what would it feel like? What would be the experience? Would it be embarrassing? Would it be hidden? Or would it be something you'd be proud to do? Or would it be like the future? And Wade says, I'll know we've made it. I'll know we've finally dented, we've made that dent in the universe when Bradley Cooper takes that mag pack, is what we call him, takes a mag pack of like, Focus for us, or Focus Savagery, and he walks across the stage and he hands it to Keanu Reeves, and Keanu opens it and goes, whoa, right? That's the scene. So scene, that's what we want. So
can you hire those guys to do your commercial?
Well,
and just literally, you could just build that.
Great?
Guys, it's a 10-second commercial.
We could deep fake it.
Yeah, you could deep fake it. You could.
No. So it's kind of funny you say that, because literally, I probably owe Bradley Cooper royalties, because when I started the company in 2012, I finished the product at the end of summer of 2011. The movie Limitless had come out, and I hadn't seen it yet. But I'm asking these people in my beta test group, a little over 1,000 people, I said, what should I call this thing? I don't know what to call it. And they said, well, there's this movie Limitless, and your stuff is like that movie. Like, it's just like that movie. And I already had a capsule that looked a lot like this that went with the drink, right?
Yeah.
And so they said, dude, I just call it. So I called this Wyatt guy, this former business partner of mine.
Yeah.
And I said, Wyatt, what should I call this? And he goes, what are your clients telling you? I say, well, they think I should call it that Limitless thing or whatever. And he goes, well, and so he does a USPTO search. I hadn't thought of doing that, right? Yeah. And so Patent Trademark Office, and saying, well, NZT48 isn't trademarked, and the Limitless movie is. You're probably going to get in trouble with that, but Limitless NZT48, I would call it that. And he did that because he had acquired the technology that was open source technology called Tripwire for data transfer. So it basically meters packets coming through your firewall of your organization to see if they're friendly packets or unfriendly packets. And if they look unfriendly, or if there's what's called a DDoS, a denial of service attack, from sending a bunch of packets from a bunch of servers all around the world, which would be like a hacking event, right? Trying to take down your servers. Yeah. It redirects all that data over here, so it doesn't wipe out your servers, and it also doesn't restrict traffic for friendly fire. And so anyhow, he said, I called it Tripwire. Here's how I found it like this. I called it Tripwire because that was what it was called, because they already had 1 million users. So I called it Tripwire. I got the domain from them. I got the rights to use it, and that's what built my business to $86 million.
Wow.
So he goes, yeah. So I ran on an existing brand. Bradley Cooper, God bless him, has created a brand for you. I would jump on that. And the cool thing was, every time Limitless opened in different countries, we'd get this big surge in orders from these countries.
Wow.
So it's great. So for 5 years plus, and then the TV show came out that he was the executive producer of.
Yeah.
That further, fueled the fire.
Yeah.
So thankfully that and made it big. So back to this process. So when you crank open the box of Nootopia products, you get a couple things. One, you get a QR code and an URL to go to, and you can download the app. So you put the app on your phone, and that's going to give you a way to interact with your kind of think of it as a notepad or a journal for how you feel in the moment. based on what you're taking. And we've got like 5 levels of feels. And then we've got a notepad for you to tell us what that means.
Yeah.
And then for every product for every day, as many as twice a day, 3 times a day, it doesn't matter. The more data you give us, the better your customization profile becomes over time. Because it's not a one-time hit. We didn't just make it once for you and then we duplicate that every time. We reference it. We say, okay, here's where he was last time, or here's where she was last time. Here's where she wants to go based on her feedback. And here's what she's telling us on a day-to-day basis based on the specific nootropics, right? The Nootopia products that she's taking. We're going to modify it this way based on what she's asking for. I want more X. I want more Y. I want more energy. I want more focus. I want more whatever. And so then we modify it for that. So you get this app that helps you in the feedback format. And it's a journaling process, right? You also get a sheet, a 2-sided sheet that basically says, here's the journey. Oh, by the way, the app also is a journey for you. So for 30 days, we're going to help walk you through what to take when. And it's not just the nootropic stack, but it's a stack of stacks. So you can take 2 of these things together to get this other result, right? Or 2 of these things together in the morning and 1 of these things in the afternoon and get even a different result. Or you're going to prep. So you're going to take like this mental reboot at night. And that's going to prep your synapses. It's going to clean your brain out. You're going to wake up really crisp. And then you can take the morning one, and that's going to bring your acetylcholine levels up just slightly. And it's also going to clean your system up, and it's going to get you ready so that whatever you take is going to be amplified.
Yeah.
So, right, you get better performance. And then we have a booklet. Right? So the Brilliant Mind Blueprint. The Brilliant Mind Blueprint is an expansion on this, and it tells you what to take when for what kind of outcome overall.
Yeah.
And it gives you some insights on that as well. So
I have a question for you. Let's say someone did absolutely
questions
not.
are over.
Questions are not happening. Let's say someone started down this journey.
Yeah.
And they're into month 3.
Great.
Do you think they're going to see long-term cognitive benefit if they were to just slowly stop and go back to normal life?
This is such a great question. Because one of the things that we have is this addictive? Right? Is people think,
right?
Because they're taking, or if they've done, and this is not a rip on anybody, but if they've done, methylphenidate or like Adderall or Ritalin or any of those, modafinil, great one, right? Because I think modafinil is really interesting, but I can't write the check for it the next day. Like it's too expensive for me mentally to pay the price.
Yes,
because my sleep sucks so bad.
Interesting,
right?
Yeah.
So I don't want that
energy credit card.
Correct. Yeah. And same thing happens with methylphenidate. Once you, or even a lot of SSRIs, is you try to get off an SSRI, a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, typically an antidepressant, right? Or an anti-anxiety, right? Like a Xanax or something, right?
Yeah.
Which is more of a GABA-centric one. What many of these meds do, because of the way that they're created, and again, this is not a rip on a big pharma. It just is when you're patenting something like a med, you've got $1 billion behind the development and the R&D and then the successful test cases and all that.
Yeah.
So you've got to monetize that. So you need to patent it. So you got a 17 or 20 year patent, and then you've got to so it's made for a very specific purpose. The problem is, and the difference between using natural compounds and extractions, right? And I'm not saying that we've all had bad experiences on natural compounds as well.
Right.
But the right natural compounds and the right ratios at minimum viable dose with potentiators, right? Those kind of that's what I go through in my head when I'm designing something.
Yeah.
What's the minimum viable dose you need of this particular compound when it's extracted clean and when it's potentiated or improved or amplified by another extracted natural compound?
Yeah.
Right? How can I make it so that those don't have a negative side effect, a kind of a rebound effect, or what's it called, downregulation of receptors in the brain?
Yeah.
How do we avoid that? So with our nootropics, that's what we did. We said, okay, based on your weight and your age and your athleticism, your health condition, what meds you're on, what vitamins you take, what kind of stimulants you like, what you don't like, how often you drink alcohol, how often you do weed, those things, right? What are the things that I can put together that are going to, that we assemble these right, are going to work for you, that are going to improve your cognitive performance without down-regulating your system and telling your system, I've already got enough dopamine, I don't need any more. Yeah. Methylphenidate does that.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't need to create more. We're trapping it, we're recirculating it in the synapse, signaling the body to quit producing more. When that happens, when you get off of it, that's why you feel like shit when you get off of it.
Yeah.
Because you don't have any dopamine left, right? Same thing with SSRIs. You're recirculating, right, serotonin in that gap, signaling the brain to quit making, I don't need any more serotonin. So when you go off of it, that's when suddenly this negative mood performance thing hits. And that's why you feel the jonesing for it the next morning or even that night.
Yeah.
And so what we've done in contrast to that was said, let's not do that. Let's give the brain the precursors to those neurotransmitters and a signaling molecule to trigger that so that you say, hey, how much dopamine do you need? We got as much pre-dopamine precursors as you could ever want.
Yeah.
Go ahead and drag some dopamine out. Let's go do that. Let's go get the motivation. Let's go get the drive. Let's go get the focus, right? Let's go do those things.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is you're almost setting the stage and allowing for the most highest, greatest possible good for the body to do what it does.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're not going to chemically modify you.
Yeah.
We're going to nutritionally enhance you.
Yeah.
To the point where your body, but we're also going to signal and say, this particular capsule is made to improve your mood and your serotonin levels.
Yeah.
Okay. Because we know serotonin is one of the key components in mood.
Yeah.
We're also going to regulate a little bit of dopamine in there. And we might have a little bit of noradrenaline as well. And then another capsule, you might say, well, it's going to be dopamine dominant. We're going to do a bunch of dopamine, a little tiny bit of serotonin, so you're not a total asshole while you're on the dopamine, right? And enough adrenaline, right, to basically get you that drive component to be able to execute.
Yeah.
So that's the whole purpose of this. And then we have the drinks, right, like Nectar X and Power Solution, where you can self-regulate. I want more or I want less of this particular cascade of neurotransmitters.
Based on how much liquid I'm sipping.
Right. And the cool thing is, because our products are non-toxic, non-caustic, right? One of our big moves right now is cellular restoration, and cellular respiration. We want to improve basically the makeup, right? Our phospholipid makeup of our cell membrane and of the mitochondrial membrane. And then we want to improve the quality of things going in and out of that. So that we can basically, one is it's a natural detoxification process then.
Yes.
And the other is when your cellular membranes are pliable and working really well, as you saw, age reversal is a natural byproduct of that.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I literally called this podcast in because I was saying to someone yesterday, I was like, I don't even feel like, I remember when I got into health like 14, 15 years ago, and I'd be like, you read about a thing and you're like, oh my God, you got to try this. I'd get so excited about it. But I'm at the phase of my life, which I don't even like telling people anything anymore because it's all contextual.
Right.
It's like that. I was listening to a podcast yesterday. They were talking about turmeric and its ability to completely shut down testosterone.
Right.
In a subset of the population that has the genetics.
Right.
And not a small percentage for men. And I was like, man, I'm just, everything needs context. As we go into this conversation about really wellness and optimization and not looking so much as disease management, but how can I really perform my best? We need to have a deeper understanding of what our bodies do and how they function. So I see what you guys are creating and I applaud it.
Thank you.
I'm super angry you have to go. And I'm super angry we have a clock. There's a little bit of frustration, but it's good.
I blame Benedettini, man. That guy.
Yeah.
Is he buff? Look at him, man.
I know.
He's just a stud.
We have our Mr. Noots handler over here on the other side of the camera, Sherpaing him over to his next podcast with our good friend Luke Story. So we're gonna pause it today. I have two questions I have to ask you before I let you go. The Beautifully Broken podcast, putting the broken pieces back together.
Love that.
What does it mean to you to be beautifully broken?
So I've had my own big medical challenges in my life, as well as I've had outside factors like my daughter committed suicide last year, schizophrenia. My wife committed suicide. When you can look at those things as not the devastating event that they are, you can go through, once you walk through that pain, anguish, sorrow, right, loss. On the other side of that is something so much more than you could have anticipated. When I was younger, I used to look for a very specific outcome, which limited me. Now I don't look for that outcome. I rise above it and I say, I wonder what cool shit is going to happen from this thing that just happened. And I don't give it any weight, positive or negative. I look at, I know that great things have always happened to me, right? In spite of all the, what would be perceived as shitty things that have happened, great things have always happened to me. I wonder what cool shit's going to happen from this. And it always surprises me in a positive way. Oftentimes, so much more than I can believe. Like I couldn't get my mind around where I'm at today, sitting with you, and all the love that I get from here, and all the people that are supportive of what we're doing and the mission. I never could have envisioned that. This is way bigger than my limited mind could have envisioned. And I think that's what, to me, what Beautifully Broken is. So.
Yeah. Well, my heart goes out to you for the very profound moments of grief that you've moved through. And I know I love this phrase that we walk through the valley of death. We don't build a condo there. And there is a, without bypassing the experience, it's like, it's to move through that is a superpower in and of itself. So I'm glad you're doing what you're doing.
Thank you, brother.
And the other question I want to ask you is, how would you define addiction? I've always felt of myself and the human race is we're just designed to be addicts. I happen to be addicted to, clean food and coffee and high level conversations and restorative lifestyle techniques that make me feel like I'm getting the most out of being a human for this 100 years, 120 years, 180 years if you're Dave. What does it mean to you to be an
I love
addict?
it. Or 120 years of your Dave. Or 180 years of your Dave.
180, Dave says, yeah.
Yeah. So there's the difference between addiction and passion, I think, is the critical, that's like the middle line, like the demarcation.
Yeah.
Is addiction is something that I have no control over, and passion is something I'm so driven toward that has a positive result, right?
Yeah.
So the addiction I would put on the negative side of it. Now, at the same time, I think that you can I have addictions, right? We all have addictions.
Yeah.
And I don't try to manage it with discipline. I try to manage it with passion on the other side of it. Like, what's the equivalent passion that would give me the same, or give me an equivalent or better feeling of life and of vitality? And then I just lean into that, because I could be as addictive as anyone.
Yeah.
I think any entrepreneur would say, "Oh, hell yeah, bro."
So in this mindset, I witness this in people. It's so easy to move the goalpost.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Especially if we're saying I'm saying I desire this outcome, then I'm choosing to make a contract with myself that I'll be happy when. And I think part of this biohacking or wellness or optimization, whatever you want to SEO, it's the idea that how do I just do these things to be more present and be more, how do I allow myself to experience joy in the moment, the journey, not the end point, not the deliverable, not selling the company.
Yeah. The liquidity event.
No.
In fact, when we did this deal with Bioptimizers, right? When we joined forces, I had 3 offers on the table that were significant offers to sell the company. None of those people, the only reason I didn't do them, or the reason I didn't do them, is none of them had vision or integrity to do the things that I felt that I was called to do. I would have had a great liquidity event. I could have started another company and done those things. Or I could work with people greater than myself, more wonderful than myself, more passionate, right? Or at least equally, to go change the world and make that impact. I think that's more fulfilling. And I think that in the end, I believe that this was the right decision. Yeah.
You did that. You got the team. You got the right people behind you. I'm excited to do part 2 and 3 and 4. I have to have you back. We have to talk about biotoxin, illness, mold, and Lyme.
Oh, big time.
And the role, there's too much to unpack, but the role of the looping brain and wiring down on our symptoms, not being able to move through that because of systemic inflammation. And I'd love to understand the role of these, but it's another episode.
I love it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right.
Great.
Thank you, brother. You are the best.
You're the best. Great conversation. I hope people are inspired to go do something today for your optimal state of well-being. This is a Beautifully Broken podcast. Thank you, Mark.
Dig it, brother.
It was a pleasure.
See you soon.
Thank you, Anthony. Team, big
Love
love.
ya.
Bye.